I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, March the 7th, brought to you in part by Toromox by Norbrook. Toromox is ready-to-use injectable wormer, affordable alternative to Sidectin, and you can expect the same advantages at a lower cost. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Also, Unionville Livestock Market in north central Missouri and Creston Livestock Market in south central Iowa. Unionville will be having a big special next Tuesday, March the 18th, expecting around 2,000 head. It will include 2 loads of those Rockin' R cattle that always top the market there. So looking forward to that. Creston Livestock Market up in Iowa there, they've got a special coming this Wednesday. It's an all-vaccinated calf and yearling special, March the 12th. Have 2,200 plus. Justin Peterson's got 255 head of Angus steers and heifers in there. And they've got numerous reputation consignments from all around the local area there, and many of those will have replacement quality heifers on them. So don't forget about those 2 sales. You can check out both of them at DVAuction.com. The once rank wheat is now dry and short. We talked about how excellent the wheat pastures were whenever everybody turned out there in November. We'd had kind of a dry summer, and then we had some fall moisture. Really made that stuff stand up good. But man, we haven't had much moisture at all in the hard red winter wheat region. Now, you go further up north where it got so dangerously cold, they had quite a bit of snow up there, and it did help their moisture levels, but just not that much measurable snow in the wheat areas. And they've got to move cattle off wheat. If the cattle are still on wheat, they've got to come off by the end of next week, or this coming week, I guess, before March the 15th, if they plan on harvesting that wheat. And a lot of that's leased wheat, and if they plan to make a wheat harvest there, we'll have to get that off of there. A lot of people don't harvest the wheat anymore. They can make more money grazing that for graze out wheat. And we did get some rain across Oklahoma and some of the surrounding areas this past week, and some as much as 2 inches or more. And so that will boost the graze out wheat prospects in those areas and the early grass in some of those areas. But you know, the wheat deal, everybody loves to turn cattle out on wheat, but it just seems like it's never perfect, you know, as rank as that was early, and cattle are coming off with decent weight gains. Don't get me wrong, but it really played out there. I tell you what, some of that wheat out there now just looks like dirt, and not much out there. But Noble Foundation in past years has done a lot of research in Oklahoma and around that it doesn't hurt the wheat harvest if you graze that wheat and get them off there by March the 15th. Now, some people think, oh, it packs the ground down with those cattle walking around, and maybe it does a little bit, but as far as the wheat harvest, it doesn't hurt it if you get the cattle off there by the 15th. But like I said, you can make more money putting pounds of beef on cattle than you can raising wheat, which is pretty cheap, really, by all measures. It's higher than it has been in the past, but the grains have kind of taken a hard hit here the last few weeks. You know, stockers keep getting higher, and these hard weaned calves, especially a couple of weeks ago whenever they were froze out, are really getting higher. But we're seeing prices here late this week just as high as we've ever seen on stockers that have the condition to be turned down on something. So our feeder cattle going right into the feedlot now. They've been lower all week, and we just you know, they kind of pulled back on those a little bit. Of course, the fat cattle market's been kind of in a free fall here lately. Feedlots have lost their leverage in the trade. The packers have backed the slaughter up to the point that they can pretty much get by with the captive supplies. They wouldn't have to buy any cattle negotiated if they didn't want to, but they want to trade just a few to establish that base price lower so they can buy all the cattle that they buy on the formulas and their AMAs at a lower level, and they're being able to get that done. That's been kind of a rough part of the cattle industry here for the past few weeks with fats. So, we're trading well over $2, and now they're down in the mid 190s, and we don't really see where we're going to find some hard level footing there, because they're going to have some of their biggest offerings, their biggest supplies here going forward for the next several weeks. So and we've got plenty of beef. We're making beef, even though we got tighter numbers. We're making just as much or more beef than we ever have, and it's due to the heavy carcasses. And of course the packers knew that was coming, and they led everybody with a carrot to making those carcasses all-time record big. But Trump has postponed most of the tariffs that he put in earlier in the week to come fully on April the 2nd. It's just causing a big wave every time he tries to get them put out there, and so he's backed them off. I think April the 2nd, when he puts the reciprocal tariffs on all the countries that we trade with, I assume that he will keep those on. Of course, it's got the whole world kind of ruffled up a little bit. They think we should just continue to let them use our fantastic marketplace for free and then charge us to use theirs. But it doesn't seem quite fair there. And I did notice, or wanted to tell you, that as far as Canada goes, I would hate it, or I do hate it, especially whenever the tariffs come in full time. Gonna hate it for some of the Ontario Canada feeders that I knew and saw again, and some that I met up there when I spoke to the Ontario Cattle Feeders Association. There's several of those feeders up there in Ontario that buy their feeder cattle in the United States. For Virginia, for the most part, they buy cattle in Virginia, and then they sell their fat cattle in Pennsylvania. So they're going to get hammered both times. It's just, I mean, that's a tough row to hoe right there, but there's only one packer there in Ontario, and they just kind of named their price. So they were trying to get a little bit of competition going there. I want to tell you about Livestock Risk Services. I talk about them all the time. They are your LRP specialists. And of course, we always talk about Dakota Moss there in Oklahoma City, but check out some of these other agents out there, guys that really know the industry, are active in the cattle business, know what's going on. Tim Forth there in South Coffeyville, Oklahoma. He's a good one to get a hold of. My friend Steve Anderson in Mountain View, Arkansas. He works very closely and heavily with Ozarks Regional Stockyard there. Gets a lot of video cattle in for them. Does quite a bit of order buying there for them. Knows what's going on in the industry. And then the newest addition there is Byron Bird from Okeechobee, Florida. And he's worked closely there with his father and grandfather at Oak Lake Cattle Company, and they're big order buyers down in that country, guys. So he's got some people that really know what's going on working with him. Not saying that the others I didn't mention don't, but there's some of them that I know of. But give any of them a call. They know what's going on. They're doing that stuff day in and day out. Let's talk about your board for Thursday. April live cattle down 27 cents at 196.27. June was down 7 cents at 192.62. Your back month's down, but not hard, down 20 cents to down 52 cents. Your March feeder cattle down 207 at 274.02. April was down $1.65 at 274.42. And then your back months on feeder cattle down 52 to down 122, and your CME cattle futures have just been very volatile. Down big one day, up big the next, but this was more of a quiet day, even though some of them were down, in the triple digits there. But your grains, look at May corn up 8 1/4 cents a bushel at 464. Beans up 15 1/2 cents a bushel at 1027 1/4. Your hard red winter wheat for May up 8 3/4 cents at 565 3/4 there. You look at your fat cattle trade. We have hardly traded any fat cattle at all. less than 5,000 in a negotiated basis. Like I said, they don't have to trade any. They've got plenty of, and that's what killed the hog industry years ago. Whenever your pork processors had enough hogs without the independent hog feeders, they just eliminated them. And the way that it's set up right now, your packers still want to trade a few cattle in a negotiated manner just to establish a lower base price. How they get those guys to sell those cattle at these new lows since this last rally, I don't know. There's got to be a reason that those guys are selling them. Why wouldn't they just sell them on the grid or something? Because we know that when the grid cattle come back, they do bring dollars and dollars more than that base price. But you guys know that I think we should have more negotiated trade, because that's the only way we'll ever gain in the market. If we don't have any competition, no negotiation, how do you ever gain? Of course, there's so many of the feedlots now that haven't sold any negotiated cash trade in so long, they wouldn't have any idea how to do it. And I just feel like we're losing that all the time. Iowa, they sold just a few cattle there, hardly any at all. Few dress cattle there, a couple of hundred at $3.10, which would be $5 lower than last week. Fed Cattle Exchange did sell some cattle. They were just commodity cattle in Iowa at $197 on Thursday. Nebraska didn't have any trade at all, and they've only sold 200 head for the week. They would normally sell about 30,000. So things are just really messed up. Kansas sold 1,650 on Thursday before 2 o'clock. I think they probably sold several more after 2 o'clock, and it was mostly at 196. But up through 2 o'clock, through confirmed sales of 4,350 head, they had sold cattle from 196 to 197. That's $1 lower than last week. Texas sold 350 head. They've only sold 800 for the week, and that's at 196, mostly $1 lower. Kelowna, Iowa, livestock there, they had a fat cattle auction, kind of a lighter run. They've had some weather up there, only 400 head. Market was steady to $1 lower on fed cattle. Conventional fed cattle selling from 207 all the way up to 220 and a quarter, and people are just puking them at 196. Box beef cutout values were mixed. Choice cuts down 42 cents at 313.12. Selects up 98 cents at 303.51. Your slaughter through the first 4 days of the week, 467,000 estimated slaughter, 10,000 more than this point a week ago, 20,000 less than this point a year ago. Actual slaughter information comes back. It's always 2 weeks late. Had your average dressed steer carcass weight at 946 pounds, an 8-pound drop from the previous report because of that frigid cold snap, but still running 32 pounds heavier than a year ago at this time. Talk about what else is going on. Green River posts, they've got southern yellow pine fence posts that are treated, and they're guaranteed for 25 years for rot, guys, coming out of Kentucky, and they will deliver those anywhere for you. The first 200 miles is free. Family operation there, guys. Check them out. greenriverpost.com. Talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance, working to protect your livelihood. Your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Thursday after all your sales had closed, sitting at 274.85 based on an 800-pound cash auction steer. That was $1.57 lower than the end of trade on Wednesday. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index sitting at 276.09. Talk about some sales you might be interested in. I'm going to be going out here to Lone Star Stockyards at Wildorado, Texas on Friday. Got the Wildorado production sale. Wildorado Cattle Company, that is ran and operated by the FFA kids at the small school there in Wildorado, Texas, and it's kind of fun to see them out there. They're all got a job to do, and then they take some consignments, and they've got seed stock cattle that they raise. and they will be selling them. It's kind of a fun event, and it will be happening at noon Central. Check it out, Will Laredo Cattle Company on DVAuction.com. Also, Tucumcari Bull Test Station on Saturday. It's going to be kind of blizzardy type conditions there. I hope it doesn't hamper the sale too much, and I don't want anybody to get really cold, especially me. But they've got a good offering there at Tucumcari Bull Test Station. It's like the second oldest bull test station in the United States, guys. And it's going to be there at the station. It's going to be on DVAuction.com, 1 o'clock Mountain Time or 2 o'clock Central there. Check it out, Tucumcari Bull Test Station sale. Talk about some big sales. Feeder cattle auctions on Thursday. Winter livestock in Pratt, Kansas had 4,800 head. Feeders were mostly steady to as much as $4 lower. It's been that way kind of all across the mid portion of the country this week. Stocker cattle, stocker and steers and steer calves, $4 to $8 higher. Not a good test on the heifers, but it's kind of the way that it's been everywhere. But a stick-out deal in Pratt, Kansas on Thursday was 58 steers weighed 776, bring 290.75. Thought that was pretty darn good. How about Napoleon, North Dakota? Napoleon Livestock. They're a DV auction broadcaster up there. Really nice people up there. They had nearly 4,000 for their feeder cattle auction there on Thursday, and they had a lot of middleweight cattle that sold really well. We're your National Beef Wire stick-out sale of the day. Check out this automated marker report through Cattle Market Central and follow me through the best tested weights there. 473 head of 5-weight steer calves in Napoleon, North Dakota, average 553. Weighted average price $365.79. There were 696 head of 6-weight steers. They averaged 642 at $330.19. 496 head of 7-weight steers averaged 764 pounds at $290.45. Look at some heifers. How about 498 head of 5-weight heifer calves averaged 547. Weighted average price $323.13. 508 head of 6-weight heifers averaged 646 at $288.67. Give you several individual quotes from all over the country. How about Mitchell Livestock Marketing in Mitchell, South Dakota? They sell 65 feeding steers, weighed 874 at $280.25. How about Glasgow Stockyards in Montana? They sell 110 steers, weigh 509 at $397. Almost as high as we've ever quoted them anywhere, way up there in Montana, guys. How about New Cambria Livestock, North Central Missouri there, DV Auction broadcaster. New Cambria does a good job. They sold 66 steers, weighed 800 pounds at $284. That's nearly $10 higher than what your real-time index is based on an 800-pound steer, and these weighed 800 pounds. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day. Indeed, come out of Napoleon, North Dakota. Napoleon Livestock sells 85 steer calves, weighed 527 at $4 smooth. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.